Hollywood has always thrived on drama, and even in the 1960s, not even its brightest stars were spared from it. One legendary feud that still fascinates people today is the bitter rivalry between the ultimate Renaissance man, Yul Brynner, and Steve McQueen, the rebellious Hollywood heartthrob. While most people are familiar with the bad blood between these two icons, very few understand how or why it started. Before Brynner's death, he opened up about the origins of their conflict, offering insight into what started the decades-long animosity. So what exactly did Brynner say? Join us as we uncover the untold story behind this unforgettable Hollywood feud, Yul Brynner's turbulent childhood. Yul Brynner's life was a fascinating mix of highs and lows. Known to the world as the unforgettable King Mongkut in The King and I, his real story began long before the bright lights of Hollywood. Born Yuli Borisovich Brynner on July 11, 1920 in Vladivostok, Russia, he grew up in a family that had it all, until they didn't. Imagine living in a big four-story house in Vladivostok, part of a wealthy family with roots in Switzerland, Russia, and even Mongolia. The Brynners were successful landowners and silver mining developers, living a comfortable life. But their world was turned upside down in 1922, when the Red Army took over Vladivostok at the end of the Russian Civil War. Their wealth was seized, their property nationalized, and suddenly, the life they knew was gone. Still, the family stayed together in their home, finding ways to adapt to their new reality. Brynner's family background was just as unique as his life story. His dad, Boris, was a mining engineer with Swiss and Russian ancestry, while his grandmother, Natalia, came from Siberia and had partial Mongol heritage. These influences shaped him into someone who carried pieces of many cultures but never fully fit into one box. As he got older, Brynner loved spinning tales about his past, like claiming he was born on a remote island or that his mom was Roma. Some of those stories weren't true, but they showed how much he enjoyed connecting with people through storytelling. Behind the larger-than-life persona was a man who'd seen loss, change, and resilience firsthand. Want to know more about how this remarkable man went from a messy childhood to becoming one of Hollywood's most iconic stars? Keep watching. Yul Brynner's early life was shaped by the people and relationships around him, starting with his mother, Maria Dmitrievna. A woman of talent and ambition, she came from the Russian intelligentsia and had dreams of becoming an actress and singer. According to Brynner, she was of Russian Roma ancestry, a claim that added to his lifelong fascination with Roma culture. However, historians examining records from Vladivostok have since disputed this, finding no evidence of Roma ties in the Brynner family. Still, Yul's connection to the Roma wasn't just about heritage. It grew stronger during his years in exile, especially while working alongside his sister, Vera Brynner, a singer. Together, they explored the idea of incorporating Roma elements into their stage personas, though Vera later strongly opposed what she saw as cultural appropriation. Despite the controversy, Brynner's bond with the Roma community endured. In 1977, he was named honorary president of the International Romani Union, a title he held proudly until his death. Brynner's father, Boris Brynner's role was complicated to say the least. A mining engineer and inventor with Swiss, German, and Russian roots, Boris's work often took him far from home. After the formation of the Soviet Union in 1922, he was forced to give up his Swiss citizenship, and the entire family became Soviet citizens. But Boris's personal life soon grew even more complex. In 1923, while working in Moscow, he fell in love with Katerina Ivanovna Kornakova, an actress and ex-wife of actor Alexei Dickey. Kornakova was also a stage partner of Michael Chekhov at the prestigious Moscow Art Theater. Little did anyone know, her connection to Chekhov would later prove significant for Brynner's own career. By 1924, Boris made the difficult decision to divorce Marusha, though he continued to support her and their children financially. Around this time, Boris and Katerina adopted a girl, as Katerina was unable to have children of her own. This added another layer to the already complicated family dynamic. Decades later, after his father's passing, Brynner stepped up to care for this adopted sister, showing the sense of responsibility he felt toward his family, even when relationships were strained. For Brynner, Growing up amid such upheaval and complexity undoubtedly shaped the man and the actor he would become. In 1927, Yul Brynner made a life-changing decision for her family. Fleeing the uncertainty of post-revolutionary Russia, she took her children, Yuli and Vera, and moved from Vladivostok to Harbin, China. There, the siblings attended a school run by the YMCA where they began to build the foundation for their future lives. For young Yul, this period marked the beginning of his artistic journey. In 1930, Boris Brynner gave his son an acoustic guitar as a birthday gift, an act that would shape Yul's life in ways no one could have predicted. Under the guidance of his sister Vera, a classically trained opera singer, Yul threw himself into learning music. He studied tirelessly, mastering both classical compositions and contemporary pieces. The guitar became more than just an instrument. It unlocked his creativity and fueled his passion for performance. By his teenage years, Brynner had developed into a skilled guitarist and singer, setting the stage for his entry into the world of entertainment. By 1933, fears of war between China and Japan pushed Marussia to relocate once again, this time to Paris, a city already home to many Russian exiles. It was here that 14-year-old Yul made his first public debut at the Hermitage Cabaret on June 15, 1935. Performing songs in Russian and Roma languages, he quickly gained attention for his talent and charisma. His performances at Parisian nightclubs often featured collaborations with Vera, further solidifying their bond as siblings and artists. Despite balancing schoolwork and performing, Yul's fiery personality stood out. He wasn't afraid to stand up for himself, even if it meant getting into fights with classmates or others who crossed him. The summer of 1936 brought another unexpected chapter when Brynner worked as a lifeguard at a beach resort in Le Havre. During this time, he stumbled upon a French circus troupe and decided to train as a trapeze acrobat. For several years, he performed with the troupe, thrilling audiences with daring stunts. However, tragedy struck when a back injury forced him to leave the circus. To cope with the pain, Brynner turned to narcotics, unknowingly stepping onto a path of addiction that would haunt him for years. One fateful day, while purchasing opium from a dealer, Brynner crossed paths with the legendary artist Jean Cocteau. This chance meeting opened doors to a circle of influential figures like Pablo Picasso, Salvador Dali, Josephine Baker, and Jean Marais. Immersed in Paris's bohemian culture, Brynner found inspiration that would later fuel his career in acting, directing, and producing. At just 17, Brynner hit rock bottom as a drug addict. Desperate to save him, his family intervened, sending him to Switzerland for treatment. With financial support from his aunt Vera Blagovidova Brynner, a physician, Yul spent a year undergoing rehabilitation at a clinic in Lausanne. Hypnotherapy played a key role in his recovery, and the experience left a lasting impact. Brynner emerged clean, vowing never to use illicit drugs again. Though he eventually became addicted to cigarettes, a habit that took a toll on his health later in life, his triumph over narcotics was a turning point in his personal growth. It was Katerina who introduced Brynner to the world of acting, giving him his first professional lessons. Drawing from her own repertoire, she taught him how to use his voice, tone, and body language to bring characters to life. Katerina also introduced Brynner to the methods of Konstantin Stanislavski and the innovative ideas of Michael Chekhov, her former stage partner. For a young man eager to explore his potential, these teachings were eye-opening. Brynner was captivated by the artistry and discipline of acting, and his enthusiasm didn't go unnoticed. Initially, his father had hoped Yul would follow in his footsteps and take on a management role in the family business. But after witnessing his son's passion during those acting sessions, Boris changed his mind, recognizing that Yul's true calling lay elsewhere. Impressed by Brynner's natural talent and dedication, Katerina encouraged him to pursue formal training under Michael Chekhov. She provided a letter of recommendation, while Boris offered financial support and his blessing. With both his father and stepmother championing his dreams, Brynner felt a newfound confidence in his path as an actor. Their belief in him became the foundation for his future success. But then tragedy struck. Brynner's mother, Marussia, was battling a progressing illness that required specialized medical treatment only available in the United States. So in 1940, Brynner and his mother embarked on a life-changing journey to the United States, arriving in San Francisco aboard the President Cleveland on October 25th. Speaking little English, Brynner faced the daunting task of adapting to a new country and culture. His final destination was New York City, where his sister Vera had already established herself. A talented singer, Vera went on to star in Broadway's The Consul in 1950, and later became a voice teacher, leaving her own mark on the performing arts. Brynner's first taste of American theater came in 1941 when he made his stage debut in a Broadway production of Shakespeare's Twelfth Night. Playing the minor role of Fabian, he delivered only a few lines, hindered by his limited English and noticeable Russian accent. Still, this experience pushed him to master yet another language, adding English to his repertoire, which already included Russian, French, Japanese, and Hungarian. Unfortunately, like many productions at the time, the show closed shortly after the attack on Pearl Harbor, as the nation shifted its focus to World War II. During the war years, Brynner found work as a radio commentator for the Voice of America, delivering propaganda broadcasts in French and Russian. Acting opportunities were scarce, but he managed to co-star in a 1946 production of Lute Song alongside Mary Martin. He also dabbled in modeling, even posing nude for renowned photographer George Platt Lynes. In 1944, Brynner married actress Virginia Gilmore and began working as a director at CBS television studios. Over the next few years, he directed and appeared in early TV shows, including the first 2 seasons of Studio One, often starring alongside his wife. Brynner's career. Brynner's film career began modestly with his debut in Port of New York, 1949, but it was the 1950s that would define his legacy. At the urging of Mary Martin, Brynner reluctantly auditioned for Rodgers and Hammerstein's new musical, The King and I. Initially hesitant to return to the stage, he was captivated by the script and the complex character of King Mongkut. Though the production was initially seen as a vehicle for Gertrude Lawrence, who played Anna, Brynner quickly stole the spotlight. At first, audiences weren't sure what to make of Brynner's unconventional portrayal of the king. In fact, one disgruntled spectator famously threw a shoe at him during a performance. Ever the humorist, Brynner later joked, "And it was a perfectly serviceable shoe. The man must have really hated me." But it wasn't long before his mesmerizing performances won over crowds. Determined to make a lasting impression, Brynner shaved his head to more authentically resemble a Siamese monarch. This choice proved transformative, not just for his appearance, but for his entire public identity. As the character gained global recognition through the Broadway show and its film adaptation, Brynner's shaved head became synonymous with his image. It was a daring move at a time when such a look was far from mainstream, giving him an exotic and unforgettable appeal. Fans were so captivated that some even shaved their heads to emulate him, coining the term the Yul Brynner look. While he occasionally wore wigs for specific roles, Brynner maintained his signature shaved head for the rest of his life, turning what began as a creative choice into a trademark. Yul Brynner wasn't just a Hollywood icon. He was a man of many talents, including photography. An accomplished photographer, Brynner captured over 8,000 images throughout his life, showcasing his keen eye for detail and composition. One of his most celebrated shots is a striking photograph of Frank Sinatra descending from a helicopter. He also photographed some of the biggest names in Hollywood, including Elizabeth Taylor, Anthony Quinn, Sophia Loren, Mia Farrow, and Audrey Hepburn. Interestingly, Hepburn held a special place in Brynner's life as the godmother to his daughter Victoria, whom he had with his second wife, Chilean model Doris Kleiner. In 1996, Victoria honored her father's legacy by compiling a collection of his photographs into the coffee table book Yul Brynner, Photographer. Brynner even turned his larger-than-life persona into entrepreneurial ventures, such as the Yul Brynner cookbook Food Fit for the King and You. The cookbook featured his personal recipes, including dandelion soup and pork and sauerkraut ragu. The role earned him a Tony Award for Best Featured Actor in a Musical. From here onward, Brynner's career skyrocketed. Cecil B. DeMille saw something special in Yul Brynner after catching his performance in the stage version of The King and I. Backstage, DeMille told Brynner he was the only man who could embody Ramesses II in the Ten Commandments, 1956. Cast opposite Charlton Heston, Brynner delivered a jaw-breaking performance. Later that same year, Brynner starred alongside Ingrid Bergman in Anatole Litvak's Anastasia, 1956, another massive hit. With two critically acclaimed films under his belt, Brynner quickly became one of the most sought-after actors in Tinseltown. By the early 1960s, Brynner began experimenting with new genres. He ventured into comedy with two films directed by Stanley Donen, Once More with Feeling, 1960, and Surprise Package, 1960. While these efforts showcased Brynner's range, they didn't quite capture the public's imagination. His next project, however, would prove iconic. In John Sturgis's Western epic, The Magnificent Seven, 1960, Brynner played Chris Adams, a stoic gunslinger leading a group of mercenaries. Though the film initially underperformed in the US, it became a cultural phenomenon in Europe, especially in the Soviet Union, where it sold an astonishing 67 million tickets and gained enduring popularity over time. Its success led to Brynner signing a 3-picture deal with the Mirisch Company. But while the movie was a success, the relationship between the actors was tense. How did Steve McQueen land the Magnificent Seven role? Yul Brynner secured the role of Chris in The Magnificent Seven by pitching the idea of remaking Akira Kurosawa's Seven Samurai to producer Walter Mirisch. The rights to remake the film in the US had been acquired by Lou Morheim for $2,500, and he later struck a deal with Brynner's production company. Brynner bought the rights from Morheim for $10,000 up front, along with a producer's fee of $1,000 per week and 5% of the net profits. Initially, Anthony Quinn was set to star in the film with Brynner as the director. However, plans changed and Martin Ritt was brought in to direct, while Brynner took the lead role. This led to legal trouble when Quinn sued Brynner for breach of contract, claiming they had developed the film together and worked out many details before their fallout. Since there was no written agreement, Quinn ultimately lost the case. The film's title, The Magnificent Seven, was taken from the US release title of Seven Samurai, which had originally premiered in America under the same name in 1955. The film's script credit became a point of dispute. Associate producer Lou Morheim initially hired Walter Bernstein, a blacklisted writer, to draft a script that closely followed the original Seven Samurai screenplay by Shinobu Hashimoto, Hideo Oguni, and Akira Kurosawa. However, once Walter Mirisch and Yul Brynner took over production, they brought in Walter Newman, whose version became the foundation of what ended up on screen. When Newman was unavailable for on-set rewrites during filming in Mexico, William Roberts was brought in to make adjustments, partly to meet Mexican censorship requirements. Later, Roberts requested co-credit from the Writers Guild of America, but Newman, unhappy with the changes, asked to have his name removed from the credits. Now to casting. Director John Sturgis was eager to cast Steve McQueen, having worked with him on Never So Few, 1959. However, McQueen was under contract with actor-producer Dick Powell, who controlled his hit TV series Wanted Dead or Alive and wouldn't release him for the film. To get out of his commitment, McQueen, an experienced race car driver, staged a car accident and claimed he had whiplash, requiring him to wear a neck brace. This supposed injury prevented him from working on the show, giving him the time needed to film The Magnificent Seven. James Coburn, a longtime fan of Seven Samurai, having seen it 15 times, landed the role of the expert knife thrower with help from his former classmate and co-star Robert Vaughn. The part had originally been offered to actors Sterling Hayden and John Ireland, both of whom turned it down. The origin of the feud between Brynner and McQueen. While the cast was full of legendary talents, there were off-screen tensions that ran high, especially between Yul Brynner and Steve McQueen. From the start of filming, there was friction between them. McQueen wasn't happy that his character originally had only 7 lines, though director John Sturgis reassured him by saying he would give him the camera. The studio likely saw McQueen as a big name that would draw audiences, but they underestimated how seriously he would take his role. McQueen made a habit of pulling focus from Brynner in scenes. He would do little things like flipping a coin or rattling his shotgun shells during Brynner's speeches to shift attention to himself. But his most annoying trick was kicking away the mound of dirt Brynner used to make himself look taller. Their feud lasted throughout filming, making what should have been a simple working relationship a constant battle for attention. According to Yul Brynner, a biography, McQueen was unhappy with the 7 lines his character had in The Magnificent Seven and used the behind-the-scenes influence given to him by director John Sturges to shift attention to himself. Despite Brynner being the film's lead, McQueen found ways to steal the spotlight, often at Brynner's expense. He would rattle shotgun shells during Brynner's speeches and even knock over the small mound of dirt Brynner stood on to appear taller. The tension between them escalated until Brynner physically confronted McQueen, though their feud never truly ended. Despite McQueen's antics, Brynner never retaliated, even though he held significant power over the film, having helped secure its rights and even being considered as a potential director. Eventually, things escalated when McQueen repeatedly knocked down the mounds of dirt Brynner used to appear taller, leading to a heated confrontation. During filming, the tension between them became so intense that it spread to the rest of the Magnificent Seven cast, including Bronson, who also began trying small stunts to stand out. Much of this on-set competition ended up in the final cut of the film, though it caused serious headaches for director John Sturges, who felt he was losing control of his cast. In Steve McQueen, a biography, author Mark Elliott quotes McQueen acknowledging their tension. "We didn't get along. Brynner grabbed me in front of everyone angry about something. He doesn't ride well and knows nothing about guns, so maybe he thought I represented a threat." Robert Vaughn, another co-star, echoed this in his 2008 memoir, A Fortunate Life, saying, "Steve was intensely competitive. It wasn't enough just to be successful. He had to be more successful than anyone else." Even James Coburn, another member of the cast, had his own issues with McQueen on set, making it clear that behind the scenes, The Magnificent Seven was as much a battleground as the story itself. However, not all of McQueen's relationships on set were tense. He and Charles Bronson got along well, and their friendship extended beyond filming, as their wives were also close friends. Despite the years of feuding, McQueen eventually sought to make peace. In 1980, as he battled cancer at the age of 50, he called Brynner to reconcile. McQueen reportedly told him, "You could have had me kicked off the movie when I rattled you, but you let me stay, and that picture made me so thanks." Brynner, having long since moved past their rivalry, replied, "I am the king and you are the rebel prince, every bit as royal and dangerous to cross." In the end, despite all the behind-the-scenes drama, The Magnificent Seven became a defining film for many of its stars. Production setbacks. Aside from all the drama on set, production also had its fair share of setbacks. Before cameras even rolled on The Magnificent Seven, drama galloped off the page and onto the set. Lou Morheim, a Hollywood hopeful, snagged the film's remake rights for a mere $2,500, only to flip them to Yul Brynner's production company for a tenfold profit. Brynner, envisioning himself in the director's chair alongside Anthony Quinn as his leading man, set the wagon wheels in motion. But the Old West horses took a different direction, arriving with Martin Ritt replacing Brynner behind the camera and Quinn losing his grip on the reins altogether. A bitter legal battle ensued, with Quinn claiming he and Brynner had ridden the concept together, shaping the film's details before their partnership stumbled. However, lacking a written agreement, Quinn's accusations proved fleeting, paving the way for Brynner to lead the charge as the star of the film. The film's screenplay had its share of drama as well. Blacklisted writer Walter Bernstein initially penned the first draft, drawing inspiration from Seven Samurai. But when Brynner's production took over, they brought in Walter Newman, whose work forms the majority of what appears on screen. However, Newman couldn't be present for filming in Mexico, so William Roberts stepped in. While Roberts's initial task was to ensure the script would pass the censors, he ended up the sole credited writer after Newman requested his name be removed. Another dramatic aspect of the behind-the-scenes of The Magnificent Seven was in its casting. McQueen's casting in The Magnificent Seven was anything but straightforward. As per the biography of McQueen, Sturges, who was smitten with the actor after their collaboration on Never So Few in 1959, faced a formidable obstacle in McQueen's ironclad contract on the TV show Wanted Dead or Alive. Undeterred, McQueen, taking a page out of his own thrill-seeking life, staged a daring car accident. which made him don a convincing neck brace to break free from his television shackles. While recuperating, he galloped onto the Magnificent Seven set, proving once again that his commitment to a role could outrun any contract. While the Magnificent Seven disappointed at the U.S. box office, its international reception was a glorious stampede. Domestically, the film earned a mere $2.25 million, but across the Atlantic it had more success. Behind the scenes, the making of the film was just as dramatic as Akira Kurosawa's concept, and just like the feuding egos that simmered on set, the road to this international acclaim wasn't paved with gold nuggets. From pre-production battles over rights and roles to the birth of a feud between two Hollywood greats that lasted a lifetime, the making of this cinematic masterpiece was a drama in itself. The Magnificent Seven shows that behind-the-scenes stories can be just as intriguing, if not more, as the ones on screen. Yul Brynner's love life. Yul Brynner's love life was just as eventful as some of the roles he played. He was married 4 times, with his first 3 marriages ending in divorce. He had 3 biological children and adopted 2 more. His first marriage, 1944-1960, was to actress Virginia Gilmore, with whom he had a son, Yul "Rock" Brynner, 1946-2023. Nicknamed Rock at age 6 after boxer Rocky Graziano, he went on to become a historian, novelist, and university lecturer at Marist College and Western Connecticut State University. Brynner also had a long-running affair with actress Marlene Dietrich, who was 19 years older than him, starting during the first production of The King and I. In 1959, he fathered a daughter, Lark Brynner, with 20-year-old Frankie Tilden. Lark lived with her mother, while Brynner provided financial support. His second marriage, 1960-1967, was to Chilean model Doris Kleiner, whom he married during the filming of The Magnificent Seven. They had a daughter, Victoria Brynner, born in November 1962, whose godmother was Audrey Hepburn. During this period, Brynner was also romantically linked with Belgian novelist and artist Monique Watteau, 1961-1967. Brynner's third marriage, 1971 to 1981, was to Jacqueline Simone Thion de la Chaume, 1932 to 2013, a French socialite and widow of publishing executive Philippe de Croisset. Together, they adopted 2 Vietnamese children, Mia, born 1974, and Melody, born 1975. They lived in the Manoir de Criquebeuf, a 16th-century manor house in northwestern France, which was Brynner's first home purchase. Their marriage ended reportedly due to Brynner's decision to extend his Broadway and touring run of The King and I, along with his affairs and neglect of his family. In 1983, at age 62, Brynner married his 4th and final wife, Kathy Lee, born 1957, a 26-year-old ballerina from Ipoh, Malaysia, whom he met during a production of The King and I. They remained together until his death. Yul Brynner started smoking at just 12 years old and eventually became a heavy smoker, going through 5 packs a day. In 1983, the same year he married his 4th wife, Kathy Lee, a young Malaysian dancer, he was diagnosed with throat cancer. Confronting his mortality, he embraced Buddhism and reflected on the truth of an old gypsy saying, "Your future is getting shorter." Despite his illness, he made a remarkable return to Broadway before passing away on October 10, 1985, at the age of 65. Before his death, Brynner recorded a powerful anti-smoking PSA for the American Cancer Society, which aired posthumously. In it, he warned viewers, "Now that I'm gone, I tell you, don't smoke. Whatever you do, just don't smoke." His message left a lasting impact, inspiring many to quit smoking. True to his dramatic nature, Brynner had different ideas for what should be inscribed on his headstone. Suggestions ranged from "I have arrived" to "Here lies a man who adored children of all varieties." Ultimately, his resting place in a churchyard in the Loire Valley, France, bears only his name and the dates of his birth and death. One final wish left unfulfilled. What's your take on Brynner's story and his feud with Steve McQueen? Let's hear your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more fascinating stories.